God, we are not only to seek your will, God, but we are here to worship you. To be a living sacrifice for you this morning. And we give sweet fragrance to you as we sing. You love us so, son. Sing all the precious name we pray. Y'all sing this out with us, okay? Praise the Lord. Praise God in His sanctuary. Praise Him in His mighty heavens. Praise Him for His mighty deeds. Praise Him according to His excellent greatness. Praise Him with trumpet sound. Praise Him with the lute and harp. Praise Him with the tambourine and dance. Praise Him with strings and pipe. Praise Him with sounding cymbals. Praise Him with loud clashing cymbals. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. shall come with trumpet sounds. Oh, may I then and be found. In his righteousness alone. Follow us. Heavenly Father, we love you this morning. Before you now, in humble adoration to your name. Thank you for all you've done.
see? What do you see in this picture? Do you see an old woman looking to the left? Or do you see a young woman looking away? Or how about in this picture? Do you see a former president playing the saxophone? Or do you see a woman's face? Or the other picture, do you see a woman walking to the left behind a tree? Or do you see a man's face? How about in this picture? Do you see many zebras or one lion's face? It all depends on what you are looking for, right? The truth is, you see what you are looking for. When I was in college, I made money as a bread man. I put bread in restaurants and stores. And so everywhere on the road, I saw bread trucks. When we went to the grocery store, I saw the bread aisles, what bread was in date and what bread was out of date. Meanwhile, my brother was in steel construction. So in the grocery store, he saw steel beams. He saw steel buildings everywhere he went. My wife, she saw clearance sale signs everywhere she went. If you're a bird watcher, you see birds. If you're an artist, you see clouds and sunsets. If you're an entrepreneur, you see opportunities. If you are a preacher, trust me, if you're a preacher, you see illustrations everywhere. This is a phenomenon that most of us have gone through. When you get something, all of a sudden you see it everywhere. You get a new car and you see that model everywhere. Or you or your wife gets pregnant, all of a sudden you're surrounded by pregnant. Well, they were there the whole time, but you didn't see them until now you are looking for them. You see what you're looking for, and that's true in life when it comes to good things and bad things. I know some people, bless their hearts, they can look in a field of daisies and they see the one cow patty. But then there's people who can look in a pile of manure and see the one daisy. So which do you see? Do you see things to complain about or things to be thankful for? Do you look for bummers or blessings in your mate, in church, in life? The truth is, you choose your life because you choose your attitude. If you want your life to change, then you need to change your attitude. How can I change my attitude? Well, you want to change your attitude, change what you see. And if you want to change what you see, then change what you look at. You see, we train our eye to look for bummers or blessings. And whatever you look for, that's exactly what you will see. Today our text is found in Numbers chapter 13. This is the wonderful story of the spies sent into the Promised Land. The children of Israel have just made an 11-day journey from Egypt. And God tells them to send some spies into the land. Numbers 13, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel." You're not going in to see if you can beat it. I'm going to give it to you. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one of them a leader. Okay, so what do these leaders see when they get into the Promised Land? Moses sent them, verse 17, to spy out the land of Canaan, said to them, "Go up this way into the south and go up to the mountains and see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds." Now keep in mind, as they go in to see the land, what they see will tell us more about them than it tells us about the Promised Land. You actually are what you see. So what did they see? Verse 27, they told him when they came back, "We went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit." Do you remember the story? They were carrying a cluster of grapes that was so big it took 2 men to carry it. That's still the national symbol of Israel to this day. "Nevertheless, but," verse 28, "the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw," what they see tells us more about them than what they saw. "We saw the descendants of Anak there." Who's that? Well, they were looking for bummers, and they found them. But you gotta love Caleb. He saw blessings. He saw milk and honey. Caleb, verse 30, quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and take possession. We are well able to overcome it. Remember, God promised to give it to us. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. So here's the doom and gloom crowd. Johnny Rainclouds, Debbie Downers, Eeyores. Oh, we can't do that. Why? It's all in their attitude, and their attitude is in what they saw. And they saw what they were looking for. Verse 32, what did they see? They gave the children, verse 32, of Israel a bad report of the land which they spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. Well, that can't be true. If it was, there wouldn't be any inhabitants. All the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. I guess they didn't see any short people. And we saw the giants. The descendants of Anak came from the giants. Oh, everyone in the land is giants. And we were like grasshoppers in our own sight. Notice how they saw themselves. We were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. And I have to ask, how in the world do you know what you look like to them? If you were good spies, they wouldn't have even seen you in the first place. What did they see? The spies were looking for problems. They saw giants, and they became discouraged. Small people, fearful people with small vision, see exactly what they're looking for. Excuses and can'ts. So they see giants, get discouraged, and they basically quit. But big people, courageous people, have big vision. They see exactly what they're looking for. Opportunities. Caleb was looking for opportunities, and he saw milk and honey. And he was encouraged. For Caleb, this giant was not too big to hit. This giant was too big to miss. I love his can-do attitude. So what are you looking for in life? Are you looking for excuses to quit? Are you looking for reasons to be depressed or afraid? I mean, look around. It's pretty easy to find things that are wrong, reasons to want to quit. But if you are looking for reasons to be thankful, reasons to be joyful, reasons to be confident, they are all around you. Because trust me, God is in control, whether you see it or not. So what do you see? What you see tells us more about you than it tells us about what you see. The spies saw giants. Caleb, he saw milk and honey. He saw opportunities. What you see is what you get. You ever see the acronym WYSIWYG? WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. If you're my age, you might remember where that came from. A comedian in the 70s named Flip Wilson dressed up as Geraldine. And he said first, what you see is what you get. WYSIWYG became an acronym then in the 80s when new computers did not print what you saw on the screen. If you're old enough, you remember you saw one thing on the screen, but what you printed was totally different. And so the newer computers were advertised as WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. I want you to know, in life, it is WYSIWYG. It is what you see, that is what you get. But the problem is, we don't always see what's there. I want to take you to Psalm 136. And I'd like to do a little experiment this morning in responsive reading. You ever had a responsive reading? The leader reads one verse, and the congregation reads the next verse. I want to read the first part of each verse, and I would like you to read the last part of each verse. Trust me, your part is easier than mine. Psalm 136, verse 1. I'll take the first half, you take the second half. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good.
His mercy endures forever.
Oh, give thanks to the God of gods.
His mercy endures forever.
Oh, give thanks to the Lord of lords.
His mercy endures forever.
To him who alone does great wonders.
His mercy endures forever.
To him who by wisdom made the heavens.
His mercy endures forever.
To him who laid out the earth above the waters.
His mercy endures forever.
To him who made great lights.
His mercy endures forever.
The sun to rule by day.
His mercy endures forever.
the moon and stars to rule by night. To him who struck Egypt in their firstborn and brought out Israel from among them with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. To him who divided the Red Sea in two and made Israel pass through the midst of it. Okay, verse 15, men. But overthrew Pharaoh and his army in the Red Sea. And now the ladies. To him who led his people through the wilderness. Okay, this time let's take my left over here. You're right. To him who struck down great kings. And now the right. And slew famous kings. Okay, now the middle. Sihon, king of the Amorites. Okay, you souls in the balcony. And Og, king of Bashan.
For his mercy endures forever.
Okay, everyone, verse 21. And gave their land as a heritage. A heritage to Israel, his servant. Who remembered us in our lowly state. And rescued us from our enemies. Who gives food to all flesh. Oh, give thanks to the God of heaven, for his mercy endures forever. I want to congratulate you. You just memorized half of a chapter. 26 verses. Here is what probably happened for most of us. Repetition kind of lulled you to sleep. Familiarity breeds indifference, if not contempt. And pretty soon, what we see over and over again, we take for granted, and our eyes skip ahead to what is new, what is different. If there is a choir of 100 people, and everyone is looking at the director, and one lonely soul is looking up at the sky, where do we look? We look at that one who's looking in the wrong place, right? So, when we see his mercy enduring forever, we skip over that to the new and interesting part. But here's the sad part. My part was the interesting part. Yours was the good part. Who cares about Og, the king of the whoever's? The most important part of every one of those verses was, his mercy endures forever. You know, we need food to live. And God makes it grow up out of the earth. We need water to live. And God causes it to fall down out of the sky. We can live without food and water for a short time. We can't make it without air for a few minutes. Fortunately, we don't have to go digging for that or wait for it to grow. We live in the air. And we take it for granted until we're underwater and drowning. And then we don't take it for granted anymore. Friends, you live in God's mercy that endures forever. But we tend to take it for granted. And so the psalmist intentionally drills it into us 26 times, say it with me, for his mercy endures forever. Oh, it's there. You just have to train your eye to see it. And so this morning I would like us to focus our eyes on God's hand in our lives. Our first assignment this morning is to train our eyes to see God's hand in our life. It is there. And if you look for it, you'll see it. And if you see it, you'll be thankful for it, and it will change your entire attitude. Is God's hand in your life? Do you look at others and feel jealous because you think God's all over them, but not in your life? I dare you this week to go on a God hunt. Look for God's hand in your life 1, 2, 3 times a day. Write it down. Share it with your family. If you look for God in your life, you will see it. If you don't, you'll miss it. You see what you're trained your eye to see, but tragically, you often miss what you are not looking for. Now, I knew a guy who was a groundskeeper at a golf course for 50 years. He had an eye trained to see golf balls. I couldn't find my golf ball in the middle of the fairway, if it ever was there. But he could walk along the side in the rough, and he could look into the woods, and he could see ball, and sure enough, he'd go get it. Because he trained his eye to see them, he collected them for years, put them in buckets outside his home across the street from the golf course, sold and made money off of it. I couldn't see the golf balls like that. Can I see God's hand a mile away? God, God, God. Can you? We often miss what we're not looking for, and often it is right in front of our eyes. A few weeks ago, we met Waldo. You remember our visit from Waldo? When my kids were small, we had all the Waldo books, and my kids had studied every single picture, and they could find the funny-looking guy with the red and white ski cap and the big glasses. They knew where he was on every page. Trust me, Waldo was on every page. And my kids had trained their eyes to look for him. And here's my point. Trust me, God's hand is all over your life. As a matter of fact, it's on every page of your life. It's not just a coincidence. If you will train your eye to see it, you will see it. Let me give you for instance. In November last year, our personnel committee was looking for our next student in children's ministry. And we thought we found the perfect guy. We said, that's it. And we called him, and we tentatively had an agreement for him to come and just speak. And I even mentioned on Sunday morning, next week we might have a special guest. Well, he didn't show up because he chose to go to another church, and it kind of broke our heart. And so we went back to the list and we started looking again, and everyone we looked at kind of was settling for second best. They didn't measure up to our first candidate. And so we had a couple of other candidates in mind. One didn't pan out because of a moral failure. One didn't pan out because of the doctrinal difference. And pretty soon we were back at square one. Until one day in January, when I sent an email to Carrie Hampton, and I asked her that night if she got my email, and she said, no, I checked my email, I didn't get one from you. So I went back to my email and I checked. I had to send it to Carrie. I sent it to the name above her name, which happened to be Cameron. And I thought, oh, I just sent the children's sermon to Cameron in another church. So embarrassed, I emailed Cameron and said, sorry, bud, you probably wonder where that's from, wrong number. How you doing? And then he gave me an email or call, I can't remember. But he said, can I call you tomorrow? I said, yeah, sure. What's up? The next day he called and said, have you hired a new candidate yet? I said, no one's panned out. He said, no, it's a funny thing. The Lord has laid on our heart that we're not in the right place, and maybe God wants us in Troy. We kind of miss you guys, and we wonder. And just as we were praying about whether or not to call back Troy, your email came. And we took that as God's hand in our life. And I got goosebumps. I said, me too. Sounds good to me. And now, Cameron's here this morning, and next week he's going to be candidating. Is that a coincidence? Is that just some pastor's stupidity sending an email to the wrong place? I really didn't try to send it to Cameron. But does God use our mistakes? Yes, he does. And if you're looking for it, you will see it all over in your life because you see what you are looking for. I want you to train your eye to see a second thing. And this one is probably just as important. I want you to train your eye to see what Jesus saw. You see on the screen there, looks like the call letters to an AM radio station, WDJS. You might recognize WWJD. What would Jesus do? I don't like that acronym. Asking yourself hypothetically what Jesus would do is a blank slate. Usually what Jesus would do, I can't do. I can't raise the dead. I can't feed the 5,000. I can't come up with these wonderful quips that he did. I can't do what Jesus would do. And often when I'm supplying the answer, strangely enough, Jesus would do exactly what I would do. So you can just make up things. I'm much more concerned about WDJD. What did Jesus do? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John tell us what Jesus did. That's what we're supposed to learn from. But I've changed one of those letters to WDJS. What did Jesus see? I want us to train our eyes to see what Jesus saw. And for that, let's go to Matthew, Mark, and Luke and see what Jesus saw. I want to go on a walk with Jesus today. And as we go on this walk with Jesus, I don't want you to be sightseeing. My wife and I, we love to go sightseeing. And one of the things we like to look at is we like to look at people. But I want you to see what Jesus saw. Mark chapter 1, verse 16. We walk along with Jesus, look at his eyes. As Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, he didn't look at the clouds, he didn't look at the sea. He saw Simon and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And my wife and I, we look at people. We look at people and we say, who do they look like? And they look like somebody we know. Or that's an odd couple. They don't look like they go together. Or what do you think they do for a living? Jesus was looking at Simon and Andrew, but he saw brothers. He saw fishers. He saw persons, people. He saw souls for whom he was about to die. Sometimes when we look at people, we see competition. They're going to take my place in line. They're going to cut in front of me in traffic. Jesus didn't see people as competition. Jesus saw people as souls for whom he would die. A little bit later on the walk, verse 19. When he got a little farther from there, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, who were in the boat mending their nets. Jesus saw people, but they weren't just nameless faces. They were people, and they were relationships too. You know, you are more than just the sum of your parts. You are your relationship to others. And so every soldier who comes home from the battlefield in a casket is not just a life snuffed out, but it's a brother, it's a son, it's a daughter, it's a father, it's a mother. It's somebody's loved one. And Jesus saw these relationships. Jesus saw people. He saw souls. Next chapter, he went out again, Mark 2:13, by the sea. And all the multitude came to him. And he taught them. But he didn't see a bunch of people. He saw one. As he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax office. Everyone else just saw a tax collector and tried to go around the other way. But Jesus saw this Levi, this man alone. He didn't have a brother. And he said to him, "Follow me." So he arose and he followed him. Again, look at Jesus' eyes in the next verse and the eyes of others. Mark 2:15. Now it happened as he was dining in Levi's house that many tax collectors and sinners also sat together with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many, and they followed him. And when the scribes and Pharisees saw him eating with the tax collectors and sinners, they said to his disciples, "How is it that he eats and drinks with tax collectors and sinners?" Not only Jesus saw people who needed Jesus. These other people, they saw sinners. They were looking for faults, and they found it, right? I mean, look around. Anyone in here not a sinner? If you're looking for people with problems, they're all around you. But if you look for people who are full of potential, you'll find them too. Some men look at women, and all they see is sexual objects. They look for a glimpse of skin, down a blouse or up a skirt. Some crooks look at people, and all they see is prey, someone that they can steal money from. Not Jesus. Jesus saw people. Matthew chapter 9, verse 36, when he saw the multitudes, he didn't see a crowd. He was moved with compassion for them because they were, each and every one of them, weary and scattered, like sheep, having no shepherd. Remember a few months ago, we looked at John chapter 4. And Jesus told his disciples to turn their eyes and to look at the fields for their white to harvest. Jesus wasn't telling them to look at grain. Jesus was telling them to look at the harvest of people all around them. This is not only what Jesus saw, this is what God saw. God saw humanity lost in our sin and our rebellion, headed for a Christless eternity. And he did something about our plight. He loved us enough to send his only Son, John 3:16. So how do you get a burden for people? How do you train your eye to see people in need? I know some people who don't really feel like they have a burden for souls, and they know they should as a Christian. So they go to their prayer closet and say, "God, give me a burden for people." You know, that's a nice prayer. God loves to answer those kind of prayers. But you really don't get a burden for people in a prayer closet. You get a burden for people out there where they are. See them in their need like Jesus did. Jesus could have got a burden for Simon and Andrew in the prayer closet because he could have seen what they were doing as God. But Jesus went out and saw them. So I would encourage you to go out and see them. It's easy to be like the priest and the Levite crossing on the other side of the street from the person who's in need. It's easy to avert your eyes, to avoid those places where you know you might run into the hurting, the handicapped, the homeless, the helpless. But if you intentionally go where they are, God will give you that burden. Let me challenge you. Come here on Saturday morning. Carry someone's groceries to the car and ask them if they have any prayer requests. One of those people I took to their car yesterday told me they enjoyed our breakfast 2 Saturdays ago, and the highlight of the time for them was when 2 little boys who prepared breakfast for them came to her table and said, "Is there anything we can pray with you about?" Well, you want to get a burden for souls. Pray for them. One grandmother I prayed with yesterday was praying for her little boy in the hospital who already lost his twin brother in infancy. You want to get a burden for them. You got to spend time with them. You got to see them. Go to a homeless shelter. Go to a third world country on a mission trip. If you go and you see them, you'll get a burden. It's easy to judge people. It's easy to see all the things wrong in their life. Let me, true confessions, tell you a sad story. Several years ago, I was walking into an auto store when a man stumbled out of the store, and I immediately in my heart despised him because it was obvious he was drunk. He stumbled out of the store, and I let him pass by me without knocking me down. And then I watched closely, and I noticed he wasn't drunk, but that he had cerebral palsy, the same thing that afflicts my daughter. And in that parking lot, I teared up and thought, I judged that man for having something that he had no responsibility for. Looked down on him, and my heart was moved with compassion because now I saw him in a new way. Sometimes we need to see people in a new way. We need to learn to see them as Jesus sees them. Several weeks ago, I had Manya sing a song. Lord, let me see this world through your eyes. Let me see people going to a crisis eternity forever. That's what we really need to see. We need to see what Jesus saw. When I went on a mission trip to the Dominican Republic, I was being escorted by a missionary who'd been there for several years, and he had trained his eye to see monkeys in the trees. Great big palm trees, and I wanted to see a monkey, but every time we'd pass me, I'd go, oh, there's one, and I'd miss it. Now, there's another monkey in the tree, and I never got to see one. He saw dozens. He trained his eye to see them. What did Jesus see? What did Jesus see in the trees? Do you remember the story in Luke chapter 19? Zacchaeus wanted to see Jesus, but he was short. Nobody paid any attention to him. They pushed him to the back. So Zacchaeus wanted to see him, climbed up in a sycamore tree, where Jesus was going to pass that way. And when Jesus came to Jericho, he looked up, and he didn't see monkeys in the trees. He saw people in the trees. He said, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must stay at your house. Jesus made a difference in Zacchaeus' life because nobody else saw him. Nobody else cared. Oh, he's just a tax collector. Passed by the other way. Nobody ever saw Zacchaeus till Jesus did, and that made all the difference. Maybe you can make the difference in someone's life by seeing them this week. What we need is for Jesus to touch our eyes. I love this story in Mark chapter 8. Jesus took a blind man. And in many ways, that's us, right? We are blind. He took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he spit on his eyes, and put his hands on him, Jesus asked him if he saw anything. That sounds like a cruel thing to say to a blind man. But Jesus was healing. He said, do you see anything? And the blind man looked up and said, I see men like trees walking. This is a very unusual miracle. This is the only miracle that Jesus did that we know of that was gradual, that was 2 steps. Today you go to a faith healer and you don't get instantaneous healing. You get a little bit better and then you go back to where you were. You don't get instantly healed like Jesus did. It's not miraculous. But this one time, Jesus healed him partially, not all the way. And he saw people like trees walking. That's kind of the way we see people, isn't it? I think Jesus did this intentionally just for me. Teach me to not see people like trees walking. So he put his hands on his eyes again, and he made him look up, and he was restored, and he saw everyone clearly. That's exactly what we need, isn't it? I need Jesus to spit on my eyes twice. I don't need to see people as a crowd. I need to see people as individuals for whom Christ. I need to see everyone clearly. How about you? What did his disciples see? They spent 3 years with Jesus. Luke chapter 21. They went to the big city. You ever go sightseeing in the big city? As some spoke of the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and donations, he said, "These things which you see, the days will come in which not one stone will be left upon another that shall not be thrown down." So they go to the big city, you know what they're seeing? Look at the skyscrapers. Look at the temple, how beautiful it is. They see architecture. They see rocks and gold. And Jesus says, this stuff, it's here today and it's gone tomorrow. Look around. Everything in this building will be gone in 1,000 years. Maybe a lot sooner than that. But you know what will be here somewhere forever? Every person in this room and every person not in church this morning will spend eternity somewhere. What did Jesus see? When he went to the big city,